Hey, it's Tara. I'm just heading out to session this morning and wanted to talk about a few things that have come up because as I'm recording this, it's the month of January. We've just passed the most depressing day of the whole year, which I believe is January 23rd. So you've made it. We've made it. But a few things have happened. And it's not uncommon. This is life and bad things happen. And so a lot of people have come into session or booked extra sessions because they've hit a period of struggle, or particularly with this time of year, there's been some kind of financial setback or surprise. Health issues are very common right now. There's been a lot of deaths around lately in people in my practice. So there's grieving and there's struggle and there's stress. And it's just so common all year round, but people are noticing the impacts of it, particularly right now. And in general, because of the time of year, especially if you live in a colder climate, there is a decreased resiliency that comes with that because we tend not to do the lifestyle things that are protective and help us get through stressful times, like being outside in nature, exercising more, eating healthy, eating the right things. So we come into this time of year with high hopes, but also kind of a sense of compromise and not a readiness for some of the things that might be coming at us in terms of surprises this month or any month. And so there's a few strategies that are going to help you get through some of those unexpected events that tend to throw you off. And so the first thing is really embrace the struggle. We tend to run away from stuff. We tend to hide. Something unexpected happens, you're going to have a fight, flight, or freeze response. And so it doesn't mean that your life is in danger, but it means you have a stress response happening and that's activated up in your brain. What that means is you're typically going to choose responses to support those states. So if you have a fight response, you're going to start picking fights with people. If you have a flight response, you're going to run away from everybody and go hide out somewhere. Or you could have a freeze response, which is really common, where you feel crippled, immobilized, demotivated, like you can't come up with solutions, like you can't move through your problem. So recognize that these are normal responses to stressful events in your life. And embrace the struggle in the sense that realize that you're going to get through this. This is temporary. Everything is temporary. And as much as you're going to get through it, you're going to benefit from the struggle. You're going to benefit from getting through it if you do it in the right way, if you do it in a very aware, kind of conscious, methodical way that increases your resiliency. Resiliency is not built in times of rest. Resiliency is built through the struggle. So often we don't want it. We reject, we resist the struggle, and it persists because we're not growing through it. You will not become resilient if you don't push through some of the struggle and get the tools to help you out with that. So that's the first thing, is really don't run away from the struggle, dig into it, know that it's normal, and use it as a challenge that you can get through, that you're going to make yourself stronger through this, and that this is temporary. It's time limited. It feels really big. It's time limited. The second thing, get your head on straight. Get your head right. So what happens is these things happen, we feel flooded, we feel overwhelmed, and we lose all of our coping strategies because we're being tested. And we lose perspective in those moments. If you're going into fight, flight, or freeze, you have short-term reactivity. You don't have a long-term strategy. You don't have that grounded sense of making plans to get through something and identifying strategies. What you have is reactivity, which is always going to make things bigger than what they are. So get some perspective. How big and how important is this really? Considering it's temporary, considering it's time limited, considering that there are alternatives and ways and strategies, that this is an opportunity for you to be creative in challenging and pushing back into your own life. And so how big does this really need to be? Fast forward yourself a year from now. How do you want to get through this time? How do you want to say? What's the story you're going to tell? How do you want to report that you chose to get through this time? What plan is that going to look like? What mood do you want to use to get through it? What strategies are you going to employ? So really think about daydreaming a year in advance as to how do you want to tell this story of how you boldly walked through the fire at this time of your life. And then once you do that, come back to this time and start making choices that support the story that you want to tell about this time in your life. It's a powerful, powerful coping strategy to do this time warp thing. So really get perspective on it, because does it really need to be that big? And in your reactivity, are you making temporary judgments and decisions and radical extreme measures in your life when really those are going to have permanent effects and regret, and that you're not doing this in a way that is grounded and actually going to build that resiliency? You need to do this in a mindful way, or the lesson will be wasted. The very last thing, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. What happens is something happens, we panic, we freak out, and we get tunnel vision, and we get very close. We become very inside ourselves. We're either vomiting everything to everybody and looking for support and resources or encouraging of our drama, or we get very quiet and we pull in. And with that, we push away people that could help support us and encourage us and be with us through this time, along with their creative resources and their knowledge of how we might be able to get through this, or their knowledge about how we could network to get through and find some creative resources to help us with our problem. And so what tends to happen is we pull away from people, we push things out of the way, whether it's work or relationships or family. We stop taking care of ourselves with our self-care, and we get really locked into negative thoughts and constricted thinking. And we can end up losing good friends, relationships, business partners, and have struggle and more struggle and depression because we've isolated ourselves. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater when you could negotiate better terms at work. You could negotiate which friends to have close and which friends to have further away. This is a good time to reassess your friendship circle, because you're going to see who you want to become more like and who has good, positive, resilient energy that you can kind of bounce off of or model your nervous system after theirs, so you can use the good people in your life as resources to help get through this time. Because honestly, you're crippling yourself by not surrounding yourself with good people and good energy. And what will happen is you will be compromised when you come through this. You'll come out the other end. You're not going to get a medal for doing it all on your own. You're going to hurt people in the process, and you're going to regret the good relationships that you broke. You can't always go back and pick people up from where you left them off. So be really cautious about what you're going to keep close to you and what you're going to push away. Be strategic in every step of this. Really decide how you want to get through this time. What's the story that you're going to tell? Make choices that support that story, and look at who you're surrounded by, and look at what you need and what your energy needs are. Take time for self-care, and then be really selective with who you talk to, how much time you spend with people. Don't throw everybody under the bus in this part of your life. To do it by yourself, it's not going to help. It's going to make this so much harder for you. If you want to increase your resiliency through these tough times, stop running away from the struggle. Be aware of fight, flight, and freeze and how that's going to impact you and bring out your patterns and your impulses. Stop being reactive. This is not going to serve you. These are strategies that will keep you grounded, that will make you feel like you are in control when everything else is out of control. And you will get through this fire. You will get through to the other side stronger, better, happier than you were coming into it. And you likely won't have to repeat it again. So you made it this far. You can make it through this next month. You can make it through this next year. You get to choose how you're going to walk this walk and how you're going to create your own story. Keep that in mind as you go. I would love, as always, to hear stories about how this has worked for you. And until next time, I do hope you're well.